Like I watch guys work on the individual skill in hockey. They have personal coaches and private coaches and people that will watch their videos and cut their own videos and send it to them. And it's sending the message that the individual is more important than the group. And I think that that's a dangerous thing when it creeps into your sports. We want to be the best all the time. Everyone wants to be the best on your team, the best in your business, the best, whatever. But the circumstances don't let that happen. And if you ever are fortunate enough to get to a spot where that is the case, it lasts for a very small amount of time. So then how do you deal with the consequences of that? How do you deal with not achieving your goal of being the best? How do you deal with the goal of being the best and then losing it? How do you deal with waiting to become the best? Like that's the stuff that I think sport does just a great job of teaching us organically. Realistically, the most important thing you can do as a coach is, I think, convince your players that you care more about them as people than you do as players. And if a player makes a mistake on the ice, it has zero impact of my relationship with them off the ice. If you can add those two things together, it's not about you and have fun. I think you have a chance in sports. And as a parent, if I can push those two things for my kids, that gives you an opportunity to enjoy it.
As a professional athlete, Shane Doan laced him up with and against the best the hockey world had to offer for more than 2 decades. But just like you and me, he's a parent who's had to navigate many of the challenges that we all encounter in the world of youth sports. Hey there, I'm Scott Rintoul, the host of Better Sports Parents, and this podcast is aimed at exactly that, helping you, me, and anyone else out there become a better sports parent. And by doing so, helping improve the youth sports ecosystem so that all kids can enjoy a positive youth sporting experience. It's a mission that Shane Doan is most certainly on board with. He is currently a special advisor to the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But prior to that, he spent 21 seasons in the National Hockey League. He scored over 400 goals, laced him up for more than 1,500 games, all with the same franchise, albeit in 2 different locations, Winnipeg, and the bulk of it in Phoenix. In fact, he became known as Captain Coyote because he dedicated so much of his personal and professional life to the Arizona Coyotes. But Shane Doan is proud of these numbers more than any other. Husband of 28 years, father of 4 children, one of whom now plays in the NHL, and hockey fans will probably be familiar with him. But his 4 children have had 4 different sporting journeys, and Shane has learned a lot from each and every single one of them. He is very passionate about youth sports, and he's here to tell you why on this episode of Better Sports Parents. Shane, thank you very much for doing this, and I'm thrilled you've made the time to join me on Better Sports Parents.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Appreciate you having me on. This is what my real passion is about anyway, so this is good.
Well, let's just start right there then. Why are you so passionate about youth sports, Shane?
I just think sports in general is it's an important part of any child as they grow up. I think the idea of being part of a community and part of a team that is bigger than yourself, trying to achieve a goal that is not just about you, but about others, teaches kids so many important characteristics and qualities. And it helps them learn from the mistakes that you make as a player. Like you make mistakes as a player, you have failure, you have success, you have things that go your way, things that don't go your way, things that are completely unfair and things that are maybe a little bit favored towards you. And so you learn so much from sports. In my opinion, I think it's so valuable, and it happens quickly in an environment that is somewhat protected and controlled, and yet at the same time it's not overmanaged, because what happens out on the field or the ice or on the court is kind of out of their control, and they have to learn to deal with it in the best way possible.
Well, I think that's an interesting segue into the discussion about parents as well, because there is an aspect of parenting on the sideline that looks to add some control to that uncontrolled environment that you talked about. What was your approach as a sports parent with your 4 children?
Josh is the only one that really played hockey. My younger boy played for a little bit and then he didn't want to. My 2 girls, my one girl played a little bit. My other daughter, played soccer. They all played different sports and had fun doing it. As a parent, I wanted them just to be enjoy doing what they're doing, be passionate about it. If you were passionate about it, they would find a reason to do it again. And when they found a reason to do it again as a parent, my job was to just kind of fuel that as much as I could. And someone told me at one point, if they have that burning desire for something, you can't really extinguish it. And if they don't have that burning desire for something, you can't really light it. So your job is just to kind of read the room a little bit and give them the opportunity to be successful and use the things that sports does and the conversations and the talks that it creates to help them become better people.
We'll talk about Josh as we go through this, and I certainly don't want to focus on him because I'm sure you value the sporting experiences of all 4 of your children equally. So, when you had that conversation with your kids and when you and Andrea put your 4 children in various sports, what did you ultimately want each of them to get out of sports?
I think just kind of what I've said. Like I really do. It creates a community for people that are like minded. That for the most part, if you're playing baseball, the kids all have something to talk about, and the parents have something to talk about, and it gives them an idea of like trying to achieve a goal that isn't really necessarily just about them. I mean, you want your son and daughter to be good at what they do, but the whole point is for the team to win, and so you deal with that. And yet, at the same time, as an individual, you want to teach them the discipline and teach them the idea of you sign up for something, you finish it, you be part of the team. Sometimes the team's goals and won't align with yours individually. Sometimes it will, and you deal with all the stuff that goes along with that. A couple of my kids danced, and so you learn as a whole nother side of like the dance studio and the understanding your team and your and the concept of that and being part of a group like that. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Was it difficult for you to relate to environments like dance that you had never been involved in whatsoever?
It was, and you know what? I think it made me a better I did a better job of understanding that I need to step back and just watch and enjoy and read my kids on how they're enjoying it. My wife really was probably, as you mentioned, Andrea, she was a driving force on most all of it because I was gone a lot, so I wasn't there as much as I would have liked to be there, and I did get to be a part of a lot. It was a priority of mine that I always tried to be part of much as I could, and so I was fortunate that way, but I was very naive when it came to dance and getting all that organized, and I loved every minute of it, and, I was fascinated to see how hard those boys and girls work.
Well, I imagine that there is a relief of sorts when it's not the sport that you're most familiar with and the sport that you are known for because whether it's Josh or Carson or when one of your daughters played hockey as well, you go into the hockey environment, there's an expectation not only on your children, but there's an expectation on you as to what you're going to do and how they're going to be. How did you deal with that and how did they deal with that pressure?
Yeah, I think that was one of the blessings of being in Arizona, and there's an element that there wasn't quite the hyper-focused attention on that. That being said, when you travel around the United States or to Canada playing hockey, then it would get amplified. It wasn't really a big deal. Like we understood it, we accepted it. I understood it. My wife understood it, and my son, Josh, who continued to play once it got to a point where he was playing the travel hockey and doing all that. There was an element that they'd want to see maybe who was so and so's son and so they'd come to look and sometimes they would be impressed and sometimes they'd be disappointed and that's just the way it is regardless of whatever people's expectations are. And Josh, it never really seemed to bother him. He was fortunate. We had Adrian Acoin on his boy Kyle on the team. We had Derek Morris's boy on the team. We had Michael Roosevelt's boy on the team, and we had Brian Savage's boy on the team. So those 5 boys all played on the junior Coyotes, and they had an opportunity to just kind of hang out together. And so that helped without a doubt. When they were younger, it helped a lot. So that made it easier.
Well, something that you mentioned there, the expectations or the impressions that others get of your own child and having to parent your child through that. What were the messages that you tried to reinforce not only with Josh, but your other kids in terms of what they might receive as messages on the other side and how they coped with that?
Just that they were, if you really, really valued their opinion to the point where it impacted you on the good side, then it was going to impact you on the bad side if it was negative. And so, be appreciative, be grateful and thankful, but don't be caught up too much on what other people think too much on that. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, and you don't know which way it was going to be. And so don't worry too much about what they're saying. And at the same time, we stressed over and over again to Josh, and as he was growing up and playing hockey, was this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and every single person is at a different place in their kind of race of hockey. Like some kids are at 12 years old are at the peak of their performance and blowing the doors off of everybody out on the ice. And some kids don't peak till they're 19. Some kids peak at 25. Like you don't know when it's going to be. Some kids peak at 8. You never know. So never really judge anybody where they're at and where you're at because you don't know how long your race is going to go. And he was confident in that and comfortable in that. And again, it goes back a huge part to my wife, to Andrea, and the way that she loved him so much in every moment of it and was there with him. And she's tough too. She was like tough, like she was honest with him, and um, he was really lucky to have someone like her with him every single step.
Well, it sounds to me like all of the kids have internalized that message and it's helped develop their self confidence and self worth because the other 3 have not felt compelled to follow a sport simply because their father is pretty famous for doing that, and for those who don't know about your wife's family, I know that they weren't professional athletes, but that's a pretty strong lineage of athleticism as well. Josh, on the other hand, is a very interesting development story to me because I think from the outside, people go, "Well, that's Shane Doan. Of course, his kid's in the NHL," but it didn't always look that way for him, did it?
No, no, he would be the first to point out. Like I got pictures of him when he was, I think U15. He was U16, U15, U16. He's at least 8 to 10 inches shorter than people on his team, and probably inwards of 45 to 50 pounds lighter. And that's a big difference. That's a huge variance when you're 120 pounds and 5'4". That's a big battle to go up against a kid that's 6 feet, 180 pounds. Like that's a lot to ask. And that made it tough at times, but it also taught him that he had to play the game the right way, and that there was boys that were just more dominant than him because of it, because of the ability or the physical ability. And he just kept enjoying the game and loving the game, and he was always improving. He was always getting better. And that's really kind of probably the most important thing. I get asked that quite often, Scott. I get asked by parents, "What do you think of my son? Do you see him play? What do you think?" And I always smile. I'm like, "Well, was he better this week than he was a month ago? And is he improving? Is he getting better? Because if he is, then yeah, this is great. I love it. It's so exciting. It's not where you're at today. It's where you're going to finish and where you're going to peak. And if you're having fun playing the game and you're playing, I played sea hockey my growing up. I mean, I was in a small town, so it was different. But if you're playing hockey and loving it, let them play hockey and love it. Find every reason to let them enjoy it. And if they enjoy it, they'll find a reason to come back. And if they're improving, they'll find reasons to come back because they see it personally. And that makes it easier, in my opinion.
Well, it's in those moments that that love is tested, and it is a litmus test of sorts as to whether the child really wants to pursue this because he or she loves that sport, or whether it's going to be okay that they don't get to this ultimate pathway that so many parents are eager to put their kids on. I know you told a story on another podcast about Josh making his way to the WHL to see if that might be a pathway for him. And
Yeah.
and really, I mean, basically, it's the difference between, you and I and the way we're built and stepping on the ice together. If you could share that story and how that tested his desire in that moment.
Yeah, that was the blue-white game in Kamloops at Mac Park. So you know that exact arena. He got to play in the blue-white game. He was more than capable of playing in the game mentally. Like, his mind and the way he saw the game was even to this day, he sees the game in a I think, a very, very good way. But he was that size. He was, 5'4", 125 pounds, and Jermaine Lowen was on the ice. He was a captain of the Kamloops Blazers at the time, and he was 6'4", 235-ish. I'm like, "Yeah, boy, I even if he's on the same team, he might accidentally run Josh over," and, it was the only time that really bothered him like that. The rest of the time, he never really worried about it. He was really just he kept on enjoying the game, playing the game. But coming out of that game, he was discouraged, and he's like, "I know what to do. I can see where I'm supposed to go. I just can't do it." And and even if he did the right play, the physical strength of some of the other guys just over dominated him. And then and it wasn't it just wasn't fair. Like, it wasn't. And we had a pretty good talk, and he was upset, and that was the only time that really in his entire that I saw, and Andrew and I talk all the time after his games and talk to each other about it, and the same with her. She never really saw it affect him, that much when things were, a little more difficult for him because he was so much smaller. But he got back to work, and we got back to Arizona, and he started playing for the U15 team, a U16 team, and found a way to contribute and found a way to help out and be a good player. And we just kept emphasizing, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and everyone ends up within about 20% of the norm. Maybe you're 20% lighter than the norm, maybe you're 20% heavier than the norm, but everyone ends up in that kind of variance. And if that's the case, you can't really compare when you're, you know, 40% of the norm, 50% of the norm. That's a big difference.
Well, it's such a good parallel to life decisions, and they don't always end up in a pro hockey career, but there are going to be points in your life where you are tested. Do I want to do what is necessary to pursue this, or is it not of great value to me? And I think the message to parents in these moments of their sporting journey for their child is that's up to the child, not up to you. You might want your kid
Yes.
to put in more work so that he or she goes on to whatever that next level is. But if they don't want to do it because it's not that important to them, you need to let that go as a parent and help support your child in whichever path he or she takes.
That's one of the best parts of, I think, sports in general is that in a world, I think, at times for kids where you don't have success and you don't have failure, it's kind of like everyone participates. Sports seems to be the one area that there's an instant feedback, and you have to learn how to handle that, and you have to learn how to deal with that. And as a parent, you want to protect your kid and stop them from having that. But sometimes you just got to let the kid experience some of this. Like, that's the way life's going to be. There's a book, The Atomic Habit, and I remember reading it towards the end of my career. It came out, and I read it, and it talks about your identity as a person, and how it needs to be flexible, and it can't be rigid. And I was fascinated by it, and I think that applies for kids, where you learn so much from competing with other kids in a way that helps you deal with life as you move forward. And sometimes as a parent, I want to step in and say, "No, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to force you to do this. I'm going to get you to do that." Sometimes the sports creates an opportunity just for kids to learn how to deal with it. Come alongside them and watch them and be like, "Yeah, you're not the fastest player, you're not the strongest player, or maybe you are. And now you got to figure out the next, maybe 2 years later, you're not. And so how did you handle it when you were? How do you handle it when you're not?" And you learn how to deal with all of that. And those things are, I think, some of the best teaching And teachers, I guess you don't really do it. You're not teaching yourself. You're just watching your kid get taught by the sport. And I think that's huge. I do. I think that's so valuable and why competition and sport is so important.
Well, and this is where guidance comes in as opposed to making choices and protecting your child and fighting their battles for them. Almost everybody, even the 0.001% they're gonna get to the highest level, are not going to be Connor McDavid. There's always going to be someone better. They're never
That is a
going
good
to be
point.
the best player at some point. So how do you guide them to deal with that? And I think a relatable one for parents out there who are watching or listening is that situation where your child is frustrated with his or her role on the team or the result that his or her team are getting. And do you interject and go talk to the coach? Or do you guide them so that they stand up for themselves and they have some of those conversations on their own?
I believe that 100%. And even a guy like Connor McDavid, he's best player in the world. That's only gonna last for a period. That's only gonna last for some time. He probably wasn't the best player in the world when he first came into the NHL, so the circumstances weren't set up perfectly for him. He was trending in that direction, and then he got them now where he is. You'd be hard pressed to find too many people. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge McCarr and McKinnon and Austin Matthews fan. I think those guys are they're all kinda interchangeable. But it's just if you're one of those 4 guys, at the end of 5 years, 6 years, you're now on the backside of that. How do you deal with that? Like, our circumstances never, ever, ever stay where we want them to be. We wanna be the best all the time. Everyone wants to be the best on your team, the best in your business, the best whatever. But the circumstances don't let that happen. And if you ever are fortunate enough to get to a spot where that is the case, it lasts for a very small amount of time. So then how do you deal with the consequences of that? How do you deal with not achieving your goal of being the best? How do you deal with the goal of being the best and then losing it? How do you deal with waiting to become the best? Like that's the stuff that I think sport does just a great job of teaching us organically. It's not like you're having to create it. It just happens. And so now deal with those circumstances. And as a parent, how do you help your kids understand that you have to be above your circumstances? You have to have character so you can respond to different things with what the reality is. And that sounds like philosophical and way bigger than what I usually think, but I believe that with all my heart.
I agree with you. And because our natural inclination is to protect, it's so easy to step in. But if we do that time and time again, whether it's in sports or other areas of parenting, there's going to come a time where we can't step in and the child is ill prepared. The young adult is ill prepared to make those decisions in real life. And we have to let them at some times, and we'll use a word that nobody wants to use, fail. We have to
Yeah.
let them fail. It is a big part of sports. And if anybody out there knows anything about learning, the only way you learn is to fail along the way. Because if you already knew how to do it, you wouldn't be learning anything, Shane.
So everyone says you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. I have lost more NHL games than anyone to ever play the game. So I have actually learned more about the game than anyone that has ever played the game because of it. If that's a direct correlation, I always laugh about that. But I agree with that. Failure isn't the worst thing. And I'm never good at always at letting my kids fail. I struggle with that. I struggle with watching my kids go through anything that if I could help, I want to help. And I think every parent does because you want to protect your kids. And that's hard. And yet it's sometimes within reason. Like I'm not telling you it has to be within reason and you have to have wisdom, but to have the ability to accept that you're going to fail. Like there's going to be times in your life as a adult you're going to fail, and it's going to be similar to this feeling that there's going to be moments in if you play sports, it's going to be your fault that the team lost. Like it might not happen very often if you're the best player or you're one of the better players, but it's going to happen. There's going to be a reason. Like you should have scored the goal if you're the best player and you didn't, and now the other team scored and you lost, or you turned it over or you made a mistake or you did something wrong. how do you handle that? And it can't be your identity. It can't be what you're identified by. You have to understand that. But um, as a parent, to sit back and let that happen and be there and support, that's all you can do in those situations and understand. And I'm as guilty as anyone of watching my son play and think that he should be on the first unit power play, the first penalty kill unit, and that he should play 22 minutes a night. I think every parent thinks that. I mean, that's what we want. And yet, at the same time, you just watch and learn and watch him grow and watch him become, it's making him the man he's going to be, and I think that's good.
It's really easy from the stands. It's really easy to watch
Isn't
from the
it?
stands. I've never made a bad decision from the stands. Have you?
Oh, never. And if you put me up, like, I watch the games from quite a bit higher now. I've played a lot of NHL games from like 100 feet up in the air. Not one mistake. And I've even made some great plays, like, in my own mind, like, "Well, if you that was a nice play, but if you'd done this, this is even a better play." I love that one that I'll do to myself every now and again, but it's so easy, and it's all from a good heart, like, we all want, like that's the thing, I think as a parent, I'm fascinated, and as a every single child wants to do well. Like, no one wakes up in the morning thinking, "I wanna fail and be miserable and make everyone around me upset and disappoint people." Everyone wants to be successful, and sometimes, circumstances dictate that, it's gonna be really difficult to have success that day, or it's gonna be really difficult to have success in this field or this time of your life, so you're just gonna have to learn to grind through it, and that's hard. That's hard, but that's the way life is now, or always has been, not now, always has been.
Well, and this is where I think it's a nuanced conversation about failure because we're talking about failure in the objective of the game, which is to score more goals or get more points. But it's not failing at sport and it's not failing at development, which is the purpose of sport. And failure at the objective is actually a part of winning and succeeding at sport and ultimately in life, is it not?
I'm just gonna yeah, I think we should just repeat everything that you just said, because that is way better than I could ever articulate it, and I agree, because I'd always joke that I never felt like I lost, I was just behind when the time ran out, because if you'd given me enough time, I would figure out a way to win, like, that was just kinda you're always thinking, "Well, I'll be better next time, or I'll" and I'm learning as I'm going along. I mean, isn't that it's like the plot in every AI movie, like, it's just always learning, even when you beat it, it's learning, and it seems to be the whole point of intelligence is that you learn from everything, so, I think we're all addicted to learning, I mean, and everyone wants to learn more, figure out more, train, get yourself to, you know, be better.
In reading a lot about you and your involvement with youth sport, whether it was with your son or coaching other kids, one of the phrases that kept coming up was playing the game the right way. What does that mean to you, Shane? And why is that important to teach to kids?
What it means to me is that it's not about you. Like, if you play the game, that it's not about you. Like, if you're playing a team game, and even I love listening to some of the guys that golfers or tennis guys. They now always refer to it as, well, our group, and even though it's Jordan Spieth, he's like, we need to get back on the range and we need to figure out what I need to do so that we can get better. Like they're always referring to the group around them, because it's really, if you can get to a spot where it's not about you, it takes all the pressure off you and lets you enjoy the game. And I think the reason you play any sport is not necessarily, the word fun sounds too simplistic, but it is an element of joy and and fun. And sometimes joy and fun is tears. Like, there is tears. That's okay. Tears aren't a bad thing. It's in Inside Out, the movie Inside Out teaches that sadness is we need it sometimes. So the joy of the game is when it's not about you and you have success. And it's about being part of something bigger. And that's for me, if you play the game the right way, you develop relationships, you develop friendships, you develop ideas, you develop the ability to solve problems, all of those things. That's what the game's all about. It's not about, I mean, I like to win a lot. I really, that's sometimes too much, but it's not about winning per se to score in that moment. It's just playing hard, playing the right way, doing the things that are sacrificial for those around you.
Well, and that's why you'll hear coaches talk about the process as opposed to the result. And I'm a firm believer that that's what it should be about. And if you can talk to your children and say, are you proud of your effort? Are you proud of the way you conducted yourself out there with your teammates? Are you proud of the way that you spoke to the officials, your coach? If you're proud of all of that and you can say you gave your best at all of that, a lot of the other things are out of your control. Nobody wants to admit that. We want to think we can control everything, Shane. Most of the other stuff's out of your control, isn't it?
It is, it really is. It's one of those things that, yeah, that goes back to the circumstances. Your circumstances are gonna be out of your control, and they're never gonna be what you want for long enough. Like, you might even in the moments where you get them exactly right and everything works out and you win, and then after the game, you're out of gas on the way home or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, your circumstances are changing, like, and the effort is, if you can know that you've done everything you could and you didn't win that day on the scoreboard, but you did everything you could, you don't have to hang your head. You can be, you know, grateful and thankful for that opportunity to do
As you mentioned earlier in this conversation, Phoenix is a long way from Halkirk, Alberta.
it.
The way your kids grew up was much different than the way you and your wife grew up, and I know she grew up in a larger town than you did. But what was life like for Shane Doan youth sports in Halkirk, Alberta?
Well, my sister was the best athlete in the family by a country mile, and that's right off the top. But yeah, growing up in Halkirk was, I had the opportunity to play every sport, played basketball, volleyball, badminton. I didn't get to play football. We didn't have enough kids to play football. We did play football one time against Brownfield, and my sister was our running back because she could run. But yeah, it was a total different world than growing up in Scottsdale, where you have, kind of everything at your fingertips. And yet at the same time, sports were just a huge part of our school, huge part of our family. And when I mean family, I meant like town, because I was pretty much related to everybody in the town. So that was a big part of it, and had a lot. I was very fortunate to have incredible people that I got to grow up with that did a great job of helping me out with all of the ins and outs of playing all kinds of sports.
Well, there's so much there. One is that you lived that traditional Canadian hockey dream of going from the small town in the middle of nowhere to the National Hockey League, and you did that part of it, but you did it largely before you got to the WHL through community-based sports, and
Yes.
that is one of the challenges of the youth sport environment today is sport has become a business, and so many sports have gone club-based, especially in larger communities. What did community sports do for you, and why do you think that aspect of youth sports is so important?
Well, for me, the community is so important for anyone growing up, is to understand where you fit in your community and understanding it. And club sports are, it's a business. Like, it's hard to explain. I was reading a study it showed the breakdown of the GDP of the US and where everything fits, and I was blown away. It was like, on your house, you spend like 19% of your income on your, not house, but shelter. Your food was like 9%, your car or transportation was like 10, and youth sports in a family was 11. And so when you realize that that's how much of the entire pie of what the economy is, when they're comparing it, you knew that people that saw those numbers were like, wow, that's a lot of money that we can get part of. And that's what happened. And that's what happens. And hey, you can't really put that genie back in the bottle, but the community sports, the ability to go out and play, I like playing at multiple ages because sometimes you were the youngest, sometimes you were the oldest. If you're the oldest, you learned that you had to show leadership and take care of the younger. And if you're the younger, you had to respect the older ones because they were bigger and stronger. And so you learned a ton of that. I learned a ton of that playing communities. And I like the idea that I wasn't necessarily the best badminton player of my friend group, but we all played badminton. Well, my friend that maybe wasn't the best volleyball player was the best badminton player, and the guy that was the best hockey player wasn't the best basketball player. And so you all kind of had you all understood, and I thought it was I thought it was such a fortunate way to grow up. And I don't know how you deal with it because it's a monster of an issue, I think. I think playing multiple sports is important. I think that helps you so much as a kid to try not to get so single-minded focused because when that's gone, what do you do if that's been your single mind and your single focus? Now, I mean, as I get older, I wish I'd played a little bit more tennis or let's do you know what I mean? Like you wanna have the ability to be multifaceted, I think, is once that ultra competitive stage of your life passes, what are the things that you get to do to enjoy life? And I think that's why it's so important to have that community aspect.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the last guest who came on this podcast, Gareth Reese, talked about that as well. And he has gone on to an international career in rugby and he starred in that sport. But as he said, when he was playing basketball growing up, he wasn't the star of that team. And it showed him that he had to do different things to contribute
Yes.
to the team's success when he wasn't going to be the key player on the team. That's a massive part of learning. And it's one of the aspects I don't think a lot of people think about, Shane, when we talk about multisport versus specialization, do we?
No, yeah, and how long are you going like, the specialization in one sport, it goes back to the circumstances. How long are you gonna be the best at that? You're not gonna be the best at that, but you're gonna be good at it, but at some point, who really cares? I'm a 49-year-old hockey player. I'm a really good 49-year-old hockey player. No one cares. Like, nobody cares. Like, who really cares? So I go play golf and I stink at golf. Well, now do you know what I mean? Like you learn to deal with all of that stuff. Like, and that's where I agree with what you just said about the idea of learning different things. And that's why I think sports so important is that you do learn that and playing, like you said, having that ability to, okay, well, this is my role in this situation. How am I going to deal with that? How am I going to deal with the idea that I got to support others?
Well, and this is part of the conversation when it comes to club sport, sport as a business, community based sport, and school based sport as well. Because one of the things that comes up is that there's such a cost associated with club sport now and sport as business, but also the time commitment that's associated.
Oh, yeah.
And we are seeing some kids, certainly not all, but we are seeing some kids and some clubs say, forget the school sport aspect of it. This is where your priority needs to be. And some of the things I think kids learn through school sport are different than they learn through club sport because when you're in a school, the population and those who choose to show up and try out and be a part of the team, that's what you're dealing with. And you have to take on a different role than you might with your club-based team. And it's one where everybody just has the same access that a lot of people don't have to club-based sport because of that cost. And that's why I'm such a big believer in Jumpstart and their support of community-based initiatives and their school-based initiatives because you get to see how kids grow in those environments as opposed to the specialized ones and the ones that take 5, 6 hours a week of focus.
Yeah, I agree. And that I agree 100%. And as I'm saying it, I'm feeling hypocritical because I got so focused and single-minded focused on hockey, and it was an amazing blessing to me. Like there's no I got to do so much in the world that I never want to take that for granted. That being said, it was for a very short period of time, even though I got to play for a really long time. Like 20 years is an incredible long time. Well, 21 years, is a very long time, but it's not that long in my life. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that, and that's where even for myself that got a amazing opportunities. feels like I'm talking on both sides of my mouth, and I'm just kind of having like I enjoy having these conversations because it's important for people to understand that there isn't any one way to do things. And the community sport, I think, is so important for our communities as a whole. Having a local baseball team that plays out of the, field down the street is important for kids to kind of have a sense of belonging and know where they are. Kids that have abilities, it's really unique that they get to go and travel the world and play a sport that they love and do things where whether it's not traveling like professionally, but if you get to go play, if you're from Maple Ridge and you get to go play in Kelowna or you get to go play in Calgary, that's you get to see different things. When people say there's only one way, there's this is the way we have to do it, that's where I think the issue really comes is that we need to find a way that we can allow organically things to happen. I don't know how you do it, but taking advantage of what sport can provide for kids is really important. And sometimes it's community and sometimes it's club. And I do not like the price of it. That's the hardest part of what club I think really bothers everybody the most.
No question about it. And that plus the time commitment, travel commitment for some people, depending on where they live and access to facilities, it's all kind of rolled into that same ball. And I do want to give you credit that you weren't giving yourself there, that you chose to focus on hockey, but that was after a point, and that was not at the expense of everything growing up. I've seen you kicking the soccer ball around. You might not be a great golfer, but you're physically literate in a lot of different sports. And I can't help but think part of the reason you played 21 years in the NHL is because of all of the different things you learned from those sports that you were able to incorporate into the one that ultimately you chose.
Oh, that I will argue to my grave. The reason I was able to play as long as I did is I had a trainer in Kamloops that encouraged me and pushed me into playing. I played soccer and I'd never played soccer till I was 25. Didn't know what an offside was. I couldn't dribble a ball. I couldn't do anything with a soccer ball. But about 24, 25, I started playing soccer. And then I decided like it was a great training tool. And it opened up my hips and it kept me athletic because I think as you get older, the thing you lose the quickest is your athleticism. I'm pretty strong still. If you put me in a straight line, I'm not super slow, but I'm not fast. But I can at least run in a straight line still. But you lose your ability to kind of change direction and be multi-directional and open up your hips and do all that stuff because you just don't do it anymore. And playing a different sport, playing soccer, was the best way to train by opening up. And so I do. I believe that with all. And my sister, she's the best basketball player I've ever seen. I grew up, I can swing a golf club. I can kick a soccer ball. I loved baseball until, I hurt my knee and I couldn't play anymore. But that was at like 16, 17. So yeah, I believe that with all my heart that being multifaceted and the mindset, like the mindset, even talking to my daughters now, or my son and my daughter, and then my other daughter, like the things that they did with dance or with theater, like it makes you a better individual the more diverse you are in your experiences, I think.
Well, it goes back to that learning mindset and that curiosity that you referenced earlier in this conversation as well. That was obviously instilled in you to a certain degree as a child. When you think back now, relative to what your own parenting approach was, what was the approach of your parents to youth sport?
My parents was, yeah, just enjoy it, have fun, play as hard as you can. Like that was encouraged. Like it's fun to work hard. Like it's if you can ever get your kids to really buy into it's fun to work hard, oh, that is a gift that is it lasts a lifetime. And if you're going to do it as hard as you can do it and have fun doing it. And that was kind of and it's not about you. Those are kind of the things that it's about the team. It's about the group. It's about helping out others. Like that was always a big part of it too. That would be if I've talked to my mom and dad, it was those were the things that they pushed the hardest.
Well, it sounds to me that both your parents and the community you grew up in really were a big part of instilling what ended up being your value system. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, very, very. I think we all are, and I was very blessed to be in one that offered some real stability and concrete foundation to having fun and challenging yourself and seeing others have success around you pushes you. And so celebrate the other's success and be excited for others because it'll push you to be better. I like that stuff.
Pressure. There's a lot of it in youth sports today. Did you ever feel any of it growing up?
Yeah, I think every player that thinks that they're pretty good at a sport feels the pressure of wanting to prove to others that they're good at it. So yeah, there's no doubt about that. I did find, and I do believe this, that the idea, like when I say like it's not about you, it really does relieve the pressure. Like if you can approach a game and not thinking, okay, I'm going to go out and score the goal, but more thinking of how do I go out there and help my teammates score a goal. Like sometimes it's by me being the first one in on the forecheck that's going to get him the best chance. I might not get a point, I might not be involved in the play, but because I'm willing to kind of be the first guy in there hard to create a turnover, he gets a chance to score, we win the game. That's great. But what it really does, it takes the pressure off of you. Like, it's not about you. Like, if it's not about you, then the pressure's not on you. It's about the others around you. It's about making them better. If my focus is if I if I mess up a play, it's not that I necessarily mess it up for myself. I mess it up for somebody else, but I'm going to prove it again next time. I'm going to just always make it about trying to and that helped me with pressure. I think that I sometimes would get I'm gonna probably a little emotional player, and I would sometimes let my emotion get too high. Sometimes people get those 2 confused of like, I'm feeling too much pressure, and then other people are like, it's really I'm getting too emotional. I gotta let that go and breathe that out. That I probably would have struggled with more than the pressure side that I would be having tears running down my face as a minor hockey player because I wanted to win so bad and then just breathing through that and calming down and having a coach that would laugh with me or laugh in a supportive way about it's okay, come on, it's all right. Like and just having like that's good. I like it. Like encourage, like you're okay, express that, get that out. But it can't control you. You gotta have to control your emotions so they can't control you. That was probably the hardest thing I had to deal with growing up.
How did your parents deal with those emotions? And then how did you also, as a parent, deal with those emotional moments for your own children following a game or a season?
Well, I think that was told to me many times was emotions great. You can have them. You just can't let them control you. You can't let your emotions get so far out in front of you that you can't function and help the group. And that was something that I probably struggled the most with was you'd get so amped up and want to do, want to have success in whatever you were doing that the emotions would run away on you and you'd have to bring them back in and be able to control, not con, and it wasn't like in controlling them. Well, it was controlling them, just not letting them control you. That was what was harped on me over and over and over again. And then with my own kids, it was probably the same thing with like, you can't tell a kid not to be emotional. They're a kid. They're learning how to be. They're dealing with emotions for the first time in unique situations, whether it's a win or a loss, or it's a failure, or it's a success, whatever you're doing. So express them, but don't let them control you. Like you have to express them. You can't deny them. You can't pretend like you're not sad. You can't pretend like you're not ecstatic. You can't pretend like you have to express them. You just can't let them overwhelm and control you. And sometimes it was being loud, sometimes it was being quiet, sometimes it was just not. Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing for me.
Well, and every child's different, and all of us are
It
different.
is.
Some competitors express that emotion during their contest, whatever it happens to be. Others wait until after, and then there's that emotional release if they happen to be an emotional person. And I certainly will put my hand up and say one of the things I've had to learn as a parent is that I'm not there to fix those emotions. You know, I've got a daughter who is the second example of what I just described, that she will hold it together in whatever she's doing. But then when we get in a moment where she feels safe, obviously enough to express the emotions that she's feeling, she just needs me to listen. And I made that
Yes.
mistake. I just need to stand back. I need to listen. I need to let her out and let her know that she's safe and this is a place she can do it. But I think that's one thing parents need to realize is that you don't have to fix that in those moments.
No, I agree. Like, you have to allow them to be expressed. And that's probably one of the harder things as a parent to deal with because if I see my girls cry or not so much my boys now, but my girls, it brings up a reaction from me. And it's hard. And you want to fix it. And sometimes you're right. The best thing is to listen and just wait and understand that it's just an overflow. So you just have to let it overflow for a little bit and then, all right, let's talk again about this once we're in a spot where we can, instead of at the moment when it's hot or cold or whatever it is that you're dealing with.
You've always struck me, Shane, as an anything is possible mindset type of person. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't have gone from Halkirk to a major junior hockey market that saw you win a couple of Memorial Cups and ultimately to being a captain in the NHL, playing for Team Canada. Who instilled that type of mindset in you as a child and that belief?
Oh, that'd be just, yeah, my mom and dad, hands down. Like, I was, it was never ever thought that anything wasn't possible. I mean, my parents didn't let me live, unrealistic, but at the same time, it was, yeah, go for it and see things that if you can dream it and believe it, then you have a chance. And I really do think that the people around you that have been successful or have done things that are unique, that are celebrated in a positive light, give you the courage to then think that it's capable for you or for those around you. And I think that's important. And I was very fortunate to have a group of people around me that always seemed to celebrate the positives of what others could do, and that made me think that, okay, I can do things too. And when I got to Kamloops, everything was like, whoa, wait a minute. I was pretty good at Halkirk. I get to Kamloops and there's a lot of really good hockey players in Kamloops. I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. But it was a lot of fun.
Well, things went pretty well for you in Kamloops. You ended up being on, as I mentioned, a couple of Memorial Cup winning teams, the MVP of one of those Memorial Cups as well, and then a lot of international success, winning gold medal with Team Canada as well in those days before going on to the NHL. And you go down to Phoenix, and as we talked about, you had a lengthy NHL career, but I want to go back to where you're coaching kids down there. You're coaching your own child as well as other kids as well. There are a lot of parents out there, whether they be volunteers or in some cases paid coaches, who end up having to or choosing to coach their own children. It's a difficult dynamic for a lot of people. What advice do you have having been through it?
I coached the D when Josh was a forward for the most part. I think as both 90% I coached the D instead of coaching the forwards so that didn't feel like I had to make those decisions about whether or not he's going on the ice because I felt like I would always either overcompensate and never play him or undercompensate and overplay him. And so I was always trying to be respectful of others. And he was a good player, and so it would have been easy to kind of go one way or the other with that. As a parent, once you become the coach, you really, for that amount of time, you can't really be a parent when you're on behind the bench. Like you can't. I mean, I could grab Josh and have a quiet moment for a second or two in between periods or whatever. But for the most part, if I did that, I seem to separate him from the group if you did that. And it all goes back to the whole idea it's not about you. And so as a coach, your job, it's not about you and your son, it's or daughter, or it's about the team. And so I think your job is to be the example as a coach of putting the team first, even above your own preference. and doing what's best for them and best for the group. And yet at the exact same time, seeing everyone as an individual because you have to touch their lives to really be a good coach. I think a good coach always has a huge impact on your life in general, not just your sporting situation.
Who was that coach or coaches for you when you were growing up?
My dad was a good coach. My dad was a really good coach. I still value his opinion a lot. I had the obviously getting to Kamloops and this whole situation in Kamloops was pretty special. The group of guys that were in Kamloops, the players, was really unique. In the NHL, obviously, I had a ton of great coaches from Terry Simpson and Jim Schoenfeld, Bobby Francis and Don Hay and Wayne Gretzky and Dave Tippett, um, Rick Bowness. Like I had a lot of good coaches. So the one that had the biggest impact would be my dad. Like, he had the biggest impact without a doubt on me. He still does to this day, and he coached me the most and probably the longest.
Well, the other part that you have to handle if you're a parent coach isn't just that dynamic with your own child. It's that parent dynamic where, especially in the small community you were growing up in, your dad would have had to handle this. He's coaching his friends' kids. And in many cases, this is what a lot of parents today are going through as volunteer coaches. And they then have to deal with whatever parental behavior comes with that or questions that come with that. And you said it even earlier, Shane. People are always asking you, well, what do you think of my kid? How did you conduct yourself as a coach amongst your peers?
Yeah, I think you have to hold yourself to a standard that's higher than others just because you're in a position of leadership with regards to the boys. Like, you have to. There's no way around it, and sometimes that isn't fair, but hey, you have the responsibility of that. Realistically, the most important thing you can do as a coach is, I think, convince your players that you care more about them as people than you do as players. And if a player makes a mistake on the ice, it has zero impact of my relationship with them off the ice. And if they have make a mistake off the ice, it has more of an impact than if their on ice play than their, do you know what I mean? Like, the off ice is more important than the on ice. And as a coach, I think that there's no question that that's an important lesson and that you have to learn and understand that has real value, the way that you are off the bench and off the ice as a player and as a coach. Like, that matters, and that has impact on the people. And for your friends, I always joke, some of my very, very best friends that love hockey could never play on any of my hockey teams because they weren't any good at hockey. That doesn't change the fact that I didn't think that they were my favorite people in the world to hang out with, and some of my favorite people that I think exist. They just couldn't have played on my hockey team, and that's not an indictment of them as a person. That's just they were great people. They weren't necessarily the best hockey players. So don't take that personal. I know that's hard. That's really hard to do because you're dealing with people.
Yeah, it is. And I think you see that at the youth level. I think you probably see it as a co-owner of the Kamloops Blazers as well. And it needs to be a part of your ethos because even at that level, which is a really high level of hockey, really high, that most
Yep.
people never ascend to, the vast majority of those players are not going to play pro hockey. They are going to be
Yeah.
people who go into our communities and have to give back in some sort of other way. And again, I imagine that with the ownership group you have there and the ex-players who are part of that and Tom Glardy's who are part of it, that needs to be the common thread through the organization. We need to turn out good people. And if we get great hockey players, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the goal of everybody. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and in the end, like we talked about, I got to play a long time, play a lot of games. I don't really remember a lot of the wins and losses. I remember all the people. Like, that's really what it life is about, just the relationships and all that. And that's what it comes down to. And the highs and lows of winning and losing and all of that are great. And you learn a lot from them. But realistically, it's the relationships with the people that you come in contact with and how you handle those that really matter the most. As a parent, I think we all know that. It's just, it's sometimes easy to get distracted from it.
I want to address one other issue with you here because it's something you didn't have to deal with growing up. It's something I didn't have to deal with growing up, but our kids have to deal with it. And the kids you see in the sporting environment have to deal with it. It's social media. It's where a lot
Yeah.
of videos are. There's a lot of posts that highlight young athletes' skills, their accomplishments and achievements. So, on one hand, it's a platform for discovery. You can be from Halkirk, Alberta, and be able to
Yep.
show the world what you can do, even though they might not see you playing in Halkirk, Alberta. On the other hand, it's this source of constant comparison and potentially narcissism for young athletes and families. Let's start with this. What impact do you believe social media is having on youth sports?
Well, I think I'm so quick to be dismissive of it, and I think that's wrong. Like, and I think I'm getting better at it now because in the beginning it was new and we didn't understand it, and so I was always like, "It's the worst thing in ever invented," and there is definitely some validity to that, but there's also some uniqueness to it too, in that it gives people opportunities to showcase what they can do and people to see things, and I know that it helps some kids that in regards to learning different skills and doing different things and helping them. So I'm not by any means overly dismissive of it. The crazy hard part is that it sets a standard that's unattainable and unrealistic. I've seen videos of myself on social media doing something and it looks way better than it really was. Like it wasn't that great. It was, do you know what I mean? Like it really wasn't. But that's the part that you get caught, that you want kids to stay in the moment and use it as a tool, use it as an opportunity. Don't be afraid of it because it's not going anywhere. So use the strengths of it and use it in a positive way, but don't let it rule your life because if you do, it's a monster that'll eat you and you can't let that happen. And the hard part about social media, I think, is it trains people to want approval. Like you want approval from the group, from the masses, from everybody. And you just don't get that. Like that's not ever real. And even if you do get it, it doesn't mean anything. Um, and so you got to be able to manage the narrative of all of that. I mean, it's something that's I'm working on not being so negative against it because I don't have any. I don't have TikTok or Twitter or X or whatever. I have X. I've never ever posted on it, but I use it for news and stuff, on my Instagram and all that stuff. But I you feel for the kids though, because it creates a standard that isn't attainable and isn't realistic, and they seem to chase it, and that's where it breaks your heart for them.
Well, and I've seen incredible dunks and crazy
Yeah.
hockey goals and bicycle kicks. I've yet to see someone post 60 minutes of a hockey game. I've yet to see someone post 90 minutes of
Yes.
a soccer match.
Oh,
And that's kind of where I think young minds struggle to understand that it's not real life. It's this quick nugget that was taken out of this much bigger context. I mean, you and I can take one thing out of today that makes it look like today was incredible, but it doesn't account for all of the hard things that happen or the disappointments.
yep. And that I couldn't seriously, Scott, that's my verbatim. If anyone wants to get good at hockey and they're a young kid and you're a parent, have the kids watch the game. Don't watch the highlights, watch games. Like, I couldn't and I would have. If I could have, I would have easily taken the shortcut, and I couldn't when I got to watch Sportsnet or Sports Night on Fridays. It was a highlight of the week of hockey, and that was it. I was so excited to watch that when I was a kid, and now my son the other night, something happened in an AHL game that I was like, "Hey, did you see this?" He's like, "No, let me oh, there, yeah, here it is, and send it to me." I was like 7 minutes after it had happened, and I watched it 25 times and was fascinated by it and saw it, like, and it was in Iowa versus I think there maybe it was against Bakersfield. Anyways, obscure. I would never have seen that in the past. but I wouldn't watch a whole hockey game that night because I was watching bits of everything, and the nuance of our game is so hard to play. If you wanna be a hockey player, if you wanna be good at any sport, it's the nuances of the game that really separate you, in my opinion.
Well, one last question on social media because there's a lot of parents out there struggling to figure out what to do. What was your approach with your own children with respect to social media?
Use it as a tool. Just don't let it govern your life. Like, it's a tool. Like, there's no way that at first, I think I probably was a little archaic towards it, and then I didn't give in because I don't think that's the way. I think I just realized, like, nothing's all good, nothing's all bad. Very rarely. I mean, I guess there's a few things that are all good or bad, but not too many things in life. So, social media, as much as I wanted to stay away from it, it's an opportunity. My mom and dad get to talk to my kids, get to see what my kids are doing on social media. I get to follow what my kids are doing and see stuff that I wouldn't normally see, being that I'm separated from them at times for work or for different things. So lots of good things, and use it as a tool. If you want to learn about something, learn about it from it. Help it. Use it as an opportunity to learn, and don't worry about the likes and dislikes. My one thing that I would be with, don't do anything for social media. Like, the reason I'm doing this is to get it on social media. I have a hard time with, but sometimes, hey, it's funny and I laugh at it and enjoy it. So I guess then again, I'm just being hypocritical this whole time.
Well, I think that's all of us, though. We're all just a different shade of gray and very black and white, as you mentioned just a moment ago. Save the toughest one for last. It's not an easy one to answer, and there's a lot of different ways that you could go, and other guests have as well. But there's a lot of issues in youth sports today, Shane. If you could fix one of them, if there's one that's at the top of your list that you really think needs some reform or needs some repair, what would that issue be for you?
I bounce between probably a couple of different ones. The more specialized you get in sports, the more it becomes about the individual. And the more it becomes about the individual as you get away from what I think sports is all about, and it's not about you. And that is the one thing that if we could hold on to. Like, I watch guys work on the individual skill in hockey. They have personal coaches and private coaches and people that will watch their videos and cut their own videos and send it to them, and it's sending the message that the individual is more important than the group. And I think that that's a dangerous thing when it creeps into your sports, because I think that in life in general, it's not about you. Uh, And that's probably very contradiction to what a lot of people think. Like, it's all about you, like that. But it's not. If you want to find, I think, success and joy, it's not about you. So that would be my number one thing. But followed very closely with the expense of it all. Because I want kids to be able to do stuff that your parents don't have to make a choice between, giving up something that's vital for a kid to have an opportunity to do something that they love. That breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. And anytime you hear that story where kids didn't have the opportunity to do something because it's all become too organized and too expensive because sports is fun. Like, if you can add those two things together, it's not about you, and have fun. I think you have a chance in sports. And as a parent, if I can push those two things for my kids, that gives you an opportunity to enjoy it.
I just want to ask one follow up on what you mentioned there about the skill level being off the charts now, but perhaps the understanding of the game not being at a level it once was. I've heard this from a lot of former athletes. They've said, look, these young athletes are doing things I could never do, and they're doing it at an age where I wouldn't even thought of it. But their understanding of the game, the whole big picture, isn't where it used to be for kids that age. I don't know if you got a fix for that, Shane, but how would you start to repair that part of it for young athletes and for the game itself?
I think it goes back a little bit in regards to hockey. It goes back to being more diverse in what you play, because as a baseball player, you learn the idea of you're the individual, you're the pitcher, you have to work together. As a soccer player, you run off the ball, you learn to move the ball. As a basketball player, you run different options. Football is about the coach. And so your mindset is not so individualized because you start to understand that sports as a whole is the group. So I think that is huge. And team building. Like, team building is a big part of sports. Like, I know it sounds cheesy, but going for ice cream after a game with your little 8, 9-year-olds and watching them laugh and get along, encouraging that on the ice, like encouraging them the joy that they have and laughing with their friend. We've sometimes forgotten that. And as they get older, we seem to take that away from them. I think you watch guys that really enjoy the game. Like, you watch someone that really enjoys the game. Even a guy like Ovechkin, I love the way he plays with his joy of the game. He's just as excited when someone else on his team scores. He's scored more than anyone in the history of the game. He's going to get 900 goals. He gets so excited when someone else on his team scores. And that gives them the freedom to get excited when he scores. Like that, and but the individual skill stuff, oh man. If you play multiple sports, you start to realize that there's a kind of rhythm to games and competition. And it's not about how fast you can stick handle around a cone. It's about understanding how you win a game. And that's the rhythm of sports. And that's why I think the diversity of what I was saying a little earlier kind of got long-winded and roundabout way to coming back to that is saying, hey, understand sports. If you understand sports, you understand it's not about you, and you'll see why, you know, being a team guy is more valuable than being an individual.
Well, I know through this discussion, there are a lot of parents and coaches out there who are going to have a better understanding of sports and youth sports and a better approach to it. Thank you so much for your time. I can honestly say, having known you and watched you for so many years, that you're someone who truly exudes the my values and self worth are not all wrapped up in my sport, despite the success you've had on the ice. Shane, thank you so much for this.
Oh, thank you, Scott. I mean, I talk in circles and get long-winded and all that stuff, but I enjoy this. I think it's so much more important than any game you play. But having the ability to help others, I think, have success is huge.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and you found some tangible takeaways that you can bring with you in your journey to becoming a better sports parent. The best way for you to support this podcast is for you to subscribe, follow, rate, review, and drop us a comment on whichever platform you're watching or listening. And the fastest way for us to grow this podcast and reach more parents out there is for you to share it with your respective networks and to tell people that you see at your youth sporting events when you're there with your children. Big thanks to Lightstock Music and Andre Diaconou for the music on this podcast, which is a production of Toolkit Content. Until next time, happy sports parenting. And remember, have fun out there. That's what it's supposed to be about.